And welcome back to the Stan Simpson Show. In order to stimulate the economy, economist Dr. Fred McKinney said the government should raise taxes, not lower it. We're talking about that in the first segment. As far as the political posturing here, right, this is the whole credit rating issue, the lowering of that, something of great embarrassment to the president to some degree. There's a lot of folks making political hay about this. To what degree have both sides, or three sides, the Tea Party, Republicans, Democrats, slit their own throat in posturing over this issue, where now the American public says, gee, they're all a bunch of clowns?
Right. Well, I think the fundamental problem here is we have a political process where the political leadership in all parties are looking at sort of short-run gain, and that they're willing to essentially throw the economy under the bus in the hope of gaining political seats in Congress and in the White House.
A price to pay for that, you think, come November?
I think there will be a price to pay. Unfortunately, I think the level of public debate about the economy needs to be raised so that people need to understand essentially how the economy works and doesn't work.
Most folks don't, right?
They don't. No, I don't think they know.
I'm in that corner too. I think a lot of us really get. We talk to guys like you, and we get our. You guys have all the tables, and most people are confused at how it really works. All they want to make sure they keep more money in their pocket.
Yeah, and I want to be clear. Raising taxes is in general has a negative impact on sort of economic activity. But I think that if we're looking at the long-term health of the United States, we have to deal with this debt crisis in a responsible way, which means to get it down to more reasonable levels as a proportion of our GDP. And it's going to be some pain before we get there. But I think that, instead of having all of these sort of short-term stimulus, you look at the last 20 years of our economy, we've had some significant, recessions and financial bubbles, right. Whether it was the dot-com or the recent financial crisis.
But having two possible back-to-back recessions is something new. We have about 5 minutes left. Let's talk about now China. Explain this to me, too. Man. China owns a lot of our debt. Right. And, I'm still confused how China was able to kind of get its way where they own a lot of American bonds and debt. And so what's the worst case scenario for America with China owning all that debt?
Well, again, the Chinese got our debt because the United States is addicted to Chinese products.
So what's the leverage they have? What's the leverage that China has yet?
The leverage that they have, and again, we want to just briefly, because we are buying Chinese products, we're paying in American dollars. Right. The Chinese, instead of converting those dollars to their own local currency, keep those dollars. Well, what do you do with those dollars? They buy U.S. government securities, debt, U.S. debt, with the dollars that essentially we're giving them because we're buying their products and services more than they're buying our products and services.
The worst case scenario would be what?
The worst case scenario would be that the Chinese decide that they don't want any more U.S. government debt. Because for several reasons. One, they don't trust the Congress and the President and the Treasury Department to make good on that debt. It's an IOU.
So what do they do with it? And they would then do what? They're in a difficult situation too.
What they could do though is they could start selling U.S. government debt.
Which would create, about 2 minutes, which would create what? They sell that debt, that creates inflation, or that devalue the dollar?
It does both. What it would do is if you sell that debt, they put that debt on the market, the price of the debt is going to go down because it floods the market, and interest rates are going to go up. And so that is going to be the first consequence of the Chinese if they were to dump this debt.
It upsets the entire market.
Oh, yeah. Right. It upsets. So, I think we are looking at, despite what the Federal Reserve does, we're most likely looking at higher rates. And I'm not saying the Chinese are going to dump U.S. federal debt.
But people need to understand what that means. And we've got 2 minutes left. Here's what I've heard, and I want you to answer, that the banks are flush with the money, that the money is there, that this issue of jobs and lending, the money is there in droves. The banks don't want to lend the money. Right. So the banks say, listen, we got burned last time, and we're going to do it again. How do you convince the banks to lend the money? Because it seems that once you let that money go, then the economy starts going again, right? Isn't that the crux of the problem?
Well, that's part of the problem. The banks also have another problem. They still have problems with bad mortgages. There's some major banks, and I don't want to name names, but there's some major banks that are settling investor lawsuits, and we're talking billions of dollars for individual banks, where people who have sued the banks because of that mortgage crisis that we had beginning in 2007, 2008.
How about a mulligan? In golf, you play golf, you have a mulligan, you have a do-over. Take all the bad mortgages, say that we're going to restructure the mortgages, reset it to the current market rate, fix everyone's debt. The banks will lose some money. The government can back them on that. In exchange, the banks can let go of some of that money they have hoarding in that. Can't we do that?
I think you're onto something. I've actually am working right now with the Washington organization that is looking at some alternatives to deal with the debt crisis and also the housing crisis, because the first round in 2008 with the stimulus plan, with the bank bailout, that didn't effectively deal with the housing crisis. So we still have this problem.
The issue of stimulus now in about 30 seconds. A lot of folks talking about another stimulus. So you're in favor of another stimulus, but this one restructured, because the first one didn't seem to be as structured as it should be. If you had another stimulus geared toward the banks releasing that money and the corporations hiring again, could that work? Could that stimulate the economy?
Yeah, I think there's some things that we have to do to fix the housing crisis that will work.
A lot of foreclosures out there.
Still a lot of foreclosures, still a lot of decline in housing prices. I mean, we haven't hit the bottom.
You don't think so? Huh?
No, we haven't hit the bottom. Prices, I think we've come a long way. I mean, I just looked at some numbers at the peak in 2006. The average median price house was about $262,000. It's now $169,000. It's probably got to go down to about $135,000 to $140,000 before we bottom out. And so until we bottom out of the housing, I mean, right now, households don't have any money in this country. That's why we have this spending problem. They don't have any money.
Right. And folks are going overseas now. They're courting foreign consumers now, saying, you know what, forget the American dollar. We're going to go court foreign consumers. Real quick, you also represent the minority suppliers. Disproportionately, how are minority businesses dealing with this economy? Because in 15 seconds, it's about getting money and growing for. How are they dealing right now?
Well, it's a very difficult market right now. And the problem that I see most frequently from minority business, what I hear from minority businesses, is getting paid.
On time, or it's getting paid, period?
Getting paid on time and getting paid in some cases, period.
Yeah.
I mean, most corporations have changed their whole payment scheme to take longer to pay all of their vendors. And that has if you're a Fortune 500 company, you can go to the market to borrow money. But if you're a small business, you can't go and get lines of credit like you used to be able to.
Yeah, they cut you off, right?
Right.
All right, he's Dr. Fred McKinney. We hate to cut you off. Love having you back on. When we come back, we're going to hear from evangelist Crystal Spencer, who has written a new book about how the power of prayer is the best healer for your painful past. Catch our show online 24/7, ctnow.com/stand. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, too.